What if I were to tell you that the Holy Scriptures, as we know them, might be lacking crucial truths about the creation of the world, the lives of the patriarchs, and even the sacred laws bestowed by God Himself? The Book of Jubilees, preserved within the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible, claims to reveal these missing pieces, shedding light on hidden narratives and offering a deeper understanding of the Almighty's divine plan. Yet, this sacred text has been banned by much of the Christian world. Why, you may ask? In today's reflection, we will delve into the mysteries of the Book of Jubilees, also known as Little Genesis, and uncover the reasons it was excluded from the majority of Christian traditions. And as we explore why its 50 chapters were excluded from the mainstream Christian Bible, we uncover that this ancient text contains lost details of the Genesis narrative, offering us a divine and cosmic perspective. It reveals how angels, heavenly time, and sacred commandments were entrusted to humanity by the Creator. Yet, the Book of Jubilees does not stop there. It boldly claims that the calendar followed by much of the world is flawed, and that time itself was ordained with a holy structure by God, a structure that few honor today. So, why was this sacred text rejected by the early church? What hidden truths does it hold, and why has it been kept from the wider Christian tradition? What sacred truths does the Book of Jubilees contain that were considered too controversial for mainstream Christianity? The text begins with a retelling of the creation story familiar from Genesis, yet it goes far beyond what most versions of the Bible reveal. According to Jubilees, when God brought the world into existence, He did not simply create life, He also established the very framework of time, aligning it perfectly with His divine order. This is where the profound concept of sacred time emerges. Unlike the conventional calendar followed by most of the world today, the Book of Jubilees introduces a divinely structured understanding of time, intricately woven into God's eternal plan. The Book of Jubilees reveals a precise solar calendar, one overseen by heavenly angels and designed to govern the cosmic cycles of the universe. This is not merely a way of counting days, it is a call to live in perfect harmony with the will of God. According to Jubilees, humanity was ordained to follow this divine calendar, consisting of 364 days, divided into 4 seasons of precisely 91 days each. This sacred structure ensures that holy observances, such as the Sabbath and God-ordained festivals, always align with their appointed times. It is a flawless system, perfectly reflecting divine order, yet it is one that much of the world has forsaken. In the book of Genesis, the story of creation begins with the formation of the earth. However, the Book of Jubilees unveils an even grander vision of God's divine plan. It reveals that before the earth was formed, angels were created on the very first day of creation. These celestial beings hold a vital role in the governance of the universe, including the regulation of time and the seasons. According to Jubilees, God appointed these angels to specific duties, some to oversee the natural order, such as the movements of the heavens, and others to serve as messengers and guardians of His sacred laws. The concept of angels governing the heavens is a theme echoed in various ancient texts, yet the Book of Jubilees places a unique emphasis on their role in upholding the divine order of the universe. These angelic beings are tasked with ensuring that the sun, moon, and stars remain faithful to the paths ordained by God. As it is written in Jubilees 2:9, for God decreed that the sun should follow its course according to the divisions of the seasons. These angels do not merely watch over humanity. They are entrusted with maintaining the very fabric of time itself. When humanity falls out of alignment with God's sacred time, it disrupts the divine harmony and invites disorder into creation. Chaos, a theme that resonates deeply throughout the Book of Jubilees, arises when humanity strays from God's ordained order. One of the most controversial aspects of Jubilees is its unwavering declaration that the world was meant to follow a solar calendar rather than the lunar calendar adopted by many ancient cultures, including the Israelites. According to Jubilees, the solar calendar is the only true and divinely appointed method for measuring time, as it aligns perfectly with God's sacred design. The text reveals that the solar year consists of 364 days, divided into 52 flawless weeks, ensuring a harmonious alignment with the divine order. Each season, spring, summer, autumn, and winter, is meticulously structured within this perfect framework. Summer, fall, and winter each consist of precisely 13 weeks, or 91 days, in the divinely ordained solar calendar presented in the Book of Jubilees. This sacred structure ensures that the Sabbath and other holy festivals are always observed on their correct days, year after year. Remarkably, this solar calendar bears a striking resemblance to the Ethiopian calendar, which is still faithfully observed by the Ethiopian Orthodox Church today. The Ethiopian year is divided into 13 months, 12 months of 30 days each, with an additional month called Pagum consisting of 5 or 6 days to reconcile the difference. Could it be that the Ethiopian calendar is one of the last remaining witnesses to the divine system of time that God Himself established? In modern times, some systems continue to reflect the sacred time as outlined in the Book of Jubilees, upholding the divine order set by God. In contrast, the lunar calendar, which was adopted by many ancient cultures, including the Israelites, is seen as a distortion of this sacred structure. The lunar calendar is irregular, causing the months and festivals to shift unpredictably over time. The Book of Jubilees warns that this deviation from the solar calendar, which was divinely ordained, leads to spiritual disorder. It is foretold that those who follow the moon's phases will cause disruption to the seasons and bring disorder to the sacred observances. Seventh day, but He sanctified it as a day of holiness, setting it apart as a time of divine rest and worship. The Book of Jubilees emphasizes that the first Sabbath was established not merely for rest, but as a perpetual covenant between God and humanity. This sacred day was not just a pause in creation, but a divine act of sanctification, marking the completion of God's work and the beginning of a rhythm that humanity was meant to follow forever. In the eyes of Jubilees, observing the Sabbath on the correct day, as ordained by the solar calendar, is a sign of obedience to God's original plan for creation. It underscores the importance of maintaining the divine order, both in time and in our actions, so that humanity can remain in harmony with God's will. On the seventh day, God sanctified it, establishing it as a divine institution, an eternal law given to both humanity and the angels. The Sabbath stands as the foundation of time, a day set apart from the very beginning of creation, intended to be observed for all eternity. In the Book of Jubilees, the Sabbath is more than just a weekly rest. It is a cosmic principle that underpins the order of the universe. It not only governs the rhythm of each week, but also aligns with the greater structure of time, which includes the Jubilee cycles of 49 years. These cycles are designed to restore the world to its intended harmony with God's divine will, drawing all of creation back into perfect alignment with His plan. The Book of Jubilees reveals that the seventh day was sanctified by God, establishing it as a day of rest, release, and renewal not only for humanity, but for all of creation, including the land and the heavenly hosts. In His divine wisdom, God blessed this day and made it a perpetual sign of holiness, marking the completion of His perfect works. This divine ordinance of the Sabbath stands as a testament to His eternal plan for creation. The Book of Jubilees emphasizes that the Sabbath is not merely a day of rest, but a sacred law established from the beginning of time. This is not just a retelling of the Genesis creation narrative. It unveils the profound, hidden significance behind the sacred cycles of time that govern all of creation. According to Jubilees, Adam was indeed created on the sixth day, as Genesis recounts, but the book reveals additional details about the purpose and meaning of Adam's creation, further illuminating the divine order established from the very beginning. In the Book of Jubilees, a new layer is added to the story of Adam's creation. After God formed Adam, he bestowed upon him specific commandments that laid the foundation for righteous living. These commandments included the observance of the Sabbath, purity laws, and the regulations surrounding marriage and worship. Delivered through the ministry of angels, these divine laws were meant to guide Adam and all his descendants, forming the covenant between God and humanity. While the book of Genesis highlights God's direct interactions with Adam, Jubilees introduces a significant role for angelic beings. These heavenly messengers not only carry God's commands, but also serve as teachers, instructing Adam on how to live in accordance with God's will. This angelic mediation demonstrates the deep and multifaceted relationship between God, humanity, and the divine order as it unfolds through the ages. The angels, especially those known as the angels of the presence, play a pivotal role in ensuring that Adam and Eve fully comprehend the divine commandments concerning holiness, sacrifice, and moral conduct. These celestial beings serve as teachers, guiding the first humans in living according to God's righteous laws. In the Book of Jubilees, it is revealed that on the 6th day of the 2nd week, following God's command, Adam was presented with all the beasts, cattle, birds, and every living creature on the earth and in the waters. Each creature was brought before Adam according to its kind, the beasts on the 1st day, the cattle on the 2nd, and the birds on the 3rd. This divine order underscores the harmony of creation and Adam's role as steward over the earth, entrusted with care for all living beings in alignment with God's will. On the 4th day, Adam was presented with everything that moves upon the earth, and on the 5th day, all that moves in the water, as described in Jubilees 3:1-2. This angelic intervention was not merely a ceremonial act, but a profound reminder that God's law is not a human construct. It is a fundamental part of the heavenly order. The angels, serving as divine messengers, taught Adam that God's laws were eternal and must be observed as a covenant, just as the angels themselves faithfully followed these laws in the heavenly realm. Could it be that the divine laws, passed down through the angels, were entrusted to humanity long before Moses received the 10 Commandments? This idea presents the notion that God's covenant and his laws are not new, but eternal, woven into the fabric of creation itself, and were always meant to guide humanity in its relationship with the Creator. The Book of Jubilees offers deeper insight into the divine commandments given to Adam, and what lessons might be gleaned from these ancient laws. These laws, revealed to Adam, lay a foundation that resonates through the generations, continuing in the laws that were later given to Moses. How do these early commandments compare to the Mosaic laws, and what can we learn from them in the context of divine order and obedience? If you're curious about exploring these ancient commandments further, let us know in the comments. Should we delve deeper into the laws passed down from the earliest days of creation? Following the fall of Adam and Eve, the Book of Jubilees provides new perspectives on the story of their children, Cain and Abel. While the book of Genesis briefly recounts the tragic tale of Cain's murder of Abel, Jubilees adds rich details that expand upon these events, shedding light on the deeper spiritual and moral implications of Cain's actions and the lessons to be learned from this pivotal moment in human history. The story of Noah in Jubilees underscores the renewal of God's covenant with humanity. The flood serves as both judgment and purification, saving Noah and his family as the righteous remnant. Through Noah, God's laws are reaffirmed, offering humanity a fresh opportunity to align with divine order and fulfill God's eternal plan. The story of the flood is well known from Genesis, But the Book of Jubilees offers additional revelations about what occurred before and after the Great Deluge. In Jubilees, the focus is not only on Noah's survival, but also on the covenant God establishes with him afterward. This covenant emphasizes the importance of purity, righteousness, and the observance of God's laws. Before the flood, Jubilees delves deeper into the corruption of the earth, particularly highlighting the Nephilim, the offspring of fallen angels and human women. While Genesis 6:1-4 briefly touches on this, Jubilees expands upon it, shedding light on the depth of the wickedness that led to the flood. The Book of Jubilees provides more context on the Nephilim, explaining how these giants contributed to the corruption that led to the flood. It tells us that lawlessness spread across the earth, and all flesh corrupted its way: humans, cattle, beasts, birds, and everything that walks on the earth. They began to devour one another, as stated in Jubilees 5:2. This moral decay was not just the result of human sin, but also due to the influence of fallen angels who introduced forbidden teachings that led humanity further astray. God swiftly responded to this corruption, sending the flood to cleanse the earth. However, he spared Noah and his family because of their righteousness. After the flood, the Book of Jubilees reveals that God did not only promise never to flood the earth again, but he also established a new covenant with Noah. This covenant included specific laws of purity and sacrifice, which were later passed down to the Israelites. These laws were designed to help humanity maintain holiness and avoid the corruption that had led to the flood. Avoid impurity in both body and spirit. A key detail in the Book of Jubilees is that Noah was commanded to observe the Sabbath and follow the same laws of sacrifice and purity given to Adam. This covenant marked a new beginning for humanity, but it also emphasized the need for obedience to God's laws to prevent further judgment. The laws of sacrifice, which would later be formalized in the Mosaic Law, were already being followed by Noah as part of this covenant. These laws provided guidance on how to offer burnt offerings to God and how to maintain purity in all aspects of life. Remain pure in both body and spirit. In Genesis 12, we are introduced to Abraham when God calls him to leave his homeland and journey to Canaan. However, the Book of Jubilees takes us further back into Abraham's youth, offering a deeper understanding of his early life. According to Jubilees, Abraham was raised in a family immersed in idolatry, with his father, Terah, worshiping false gods. This detail is not mentioned in Genesis, but Jubilees provides a vivid portrayal of a young Abraham who rejects the pagan practices around him. Instead, he chooses to follow the one true God, standing firm in his faith amidst the idolatry of his time. He asked, "My father, tell me, what is this idol you worship?" Upon seeing that it was merely a stone image, Abraham burned it before the eyes of all and fled into the wilderness. Jubilees 11:16-17. While Genesis highlights Abraham's obedience to God's call to leave his homeland, the Book of Jubilees portrays him as a revolutionary figure. He boldly destroyed the idols in his father's house, making a defiant stand against the idolatry of his time. This act of spiritual rebellion sets the stage for Abraham's later role as the father of the chosen people, who would reject pagan practices and follow the laws of God. As the father of the chosen people, Abraham stands as a figure who would reject pagan practices and faithfully follow the laws of God. One of the most notable differences between Genesis and the Book of Jubilees is the depiction of Abraham's adherence to divine laws long before Moses came into the picture. In Genesis, there is no mention of Abraham being given laws beyond the covenant of circumcision in Genesis 17. However, in Jubilees, Abraham is shown to already observe the Sabbath, make sacrifices, and follow other divine commandments that are later associated with Moses. According to the Book of Jubilees, these laws were not created during Moses' time. They were passed down from the angels to the patriarchs, beginning with Adam. Abraham received these commandments from angels and was expected to follow them as part of his covenant relationship with God. The angels taught him about the things written on the heavenly tablets, Jubilees 12:25. Unlike Genesis, where Abraham's actions are portrayed as part of his personal faith journey, Jubilees presents him as someone chosen to fulfill a cosmic plan, guided by divine messengers. Abraham is guided by angels, and the laws he follows are part of a divine order that governs both heaven and earth. These laws, which include the Sabbath and various purity laws, would later be formalized by Moses. One of the most significant moments in Abraham's journey is the covenant of circumcision. In Genesis 17, God commands Abraham to circumcise himself and all the males in his household as a sign of the covenant. However, the Book of Jubilees goes even further, revealing that this act was not merely symbolic. It was part of a cosmic law inscribed on the heavenly tablets. According to the Book of Jubilees, circumcision was not merely a sign for Abraham's descendants, but a divine law established since the very creation of the world. This covenant was inscribed on the heavenly tablets, which are regarded as God's eternal blueprint for creation, containing all the laws that govern both angels and humans. This law is meant to last for all generations forever, with no deviation or alteration in its observance. The sacred act of circumcision is eternal, ordained by God, and cannot be adjusted by human interpretation. No days may be omitted or altered, as the law is established to be observed in its entirety with unwavering faithfulness. The Book of Jubilees 15:25 reveals that circumcision is not just a physical sign, but a way to align with the cosmic laws inscribed on the heavenly tablets. While Genesis focuses on Abraham's obedience, Jubilees presents circumcision as part of a divine order that governs the universe. The story of the binding of Isaac, Genesis 22:1-19, where God tests Abraham's faith by asking him to sacrifice Isaac, is retold in Jubilees with deeper spiritual context. In the Book of Jubilees, the test of Abraham is not only a test of faith between him and God, but is also part of a larger spiritual struggle. According to Jubilees, the angel Mastema, often associated with Satan, is the one who suggests this trial to God, hoping that Abraham will falter. Mastema represents the forces of evil, always seeking to undermine the righteous. The Book of Jubilees further reveals that angels intervened during the binding of Isaac, and God allowed this trial to demonstrate that Abraham's faith was stronger than the temptations of evil. In the Book of Jubilees, God commands Abraham not to harm Isaac, saying, "Do not lay a hand on the boy or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God." Jubilees 18:10. This moment introduces a deeper spiritual layer. It's not just a test of Abraham's obedience, but part of the cosmic battle between good and evil. Mastema attempts to lead Abraham into failure, but God's intervention proves that faithfulness will always triumph over evil. While Genesis focuses on Abraham's obedience, Jubilees adds a spiritual dimension, revealing the forces of darkness at work. In Genesis 25-23, we are told that before Jacob and Esau were born, God revealed to their mother, Rebekah, that the two brothers would become the heads of two nations, with the older Esau serving the younger Jacob. However, in the Book of Jubilees, this prophecy is expanded upon, showing that it was not just a family dispute, but part of a larger cosmic plan. Jacob's destiny is revealed as being central to God's divine order, with his role extending far beyond the immediate family struggle, highlighting the cosmic design in which Jacob was chosen to fulfill God's will. The Book of Jubilees adds a profound layer of predestination, revealing that Jacob was chosen from birth to inherit the blessing and continue the line of righteousness that began with Abraham. Jacob was destined to carry on the covenant, while Esau was foreordained to stray from God's plan. The book further notes that Isaac and Rebekah were divinely informed about Esau's rebellious nature and the future opposition of his descendants to Israel. As God told Rebekah, "Two nations are in your womb, and one shall be stronger than the other," setting the stage for a cosmic division between the two brothers' descendants. The Book of Jubilees adds a profound layer of predestination, revealing that Jacob was chosen from birth to inherit the blessing and continue the line of righteousness that began with Abraham. Jacob was destined to carry on the covenant, while Esau was foreordained to stray from God's plan. The book further notes that Isaac and Rebekah were divinely informed about Esau's rebellious nature and the future opposition of his descendants to Israel. As God told Rebekah, "Two nations are in your womb, and one shall be stronger than the other," setting the stage for a cosmic division between the two brothers' descendants. In the Book of Jubilees, Esau is portrayed as more than just a brother who loses his birthright. It emphasizes that Esau represents a lineage of rebellion against God's chosen people. His descendants are depicted as a nation that will rise in opposition to Israel, fulfilling the prophecy that the elder will serve the younger. While Genesis mentions the hostility between Esau and Jacob following the birthright and blessing incidents, Genesis 27-41, Jubilees expands on this, showing how Esau's descendants would become a nation that opposes Israel. Esau's rebellion against Jacob's line is portrayed as part of a larger cosmic conflict in the Book of Jubilees. It emphasizes the ongoing struggle between righteousness, represented by Jacob, and rebellion, embodied by Esau. Esau, after taking his wives, sons, and everything he had, moved to the hill country of Seir, where he established his own nation. Esau's descendants, the Edomites, would later oppress Jacob's descendants, fulfilling the prophecy of division between the two brothers' nations. Jubilees makes it clear that Esau's rebellion was not merely personal, but part of a larger divine conflict that would affect generations. National, his descendants would become the who would go on to have numerous conflicts with the Israelites, reflecting the spiritual battle that began with their fathers. One of the most significant moments in Jacob's life is when he receives the blessing from his father Isaac in Genesis. This blessing ensures that Jacob becomes the father of the 12 tribes of Israel, Genesis 27. But Jubilees goes even further, emphasizing that Jacob was given not just a blessing, but also, according to the Book of Jubilees, divine laws. After Jacob receives his father's blessing, God and the angels reveal to him the sacred laws that he and his descendants must follow. These laws include the observance of the Sabbath, purity laws, and the sacred calendar, which would later become formalized in the Mosaic Law. Jacob is shown as the keeper of these laws, entrusted with the responsibility of ensuring that his descendants, the future Israelites, honor them as part of their covenant with God. One night, the Lord appears to Jacob, speaking to him in a divine vision, reinforcing the importance of these laws for the generations to come. "I am the Lord God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you are lying, I give to you and your descendants. Your seed shall be as the stars of heaven." Jubilees 27-23, Genesis 28:12-15. In Jacob's vision of the ladder, God not only promises him the land and countless descendants, but also reveals the divine laws that will guide both heaven and earth. These laws, which Jacob receives, are part of the cosmic order that governs the entire universe. This divine inheritance elevates Jacob beyond merely receiving a birthright. He becomes the custodian of God's eternal commandments, entrusted with preserving the sacred laws for generations to come. The Book of Jubilees connects Jacob to the heavenly tablets, which symbolize the divine laws he receives. It doesn't just focus on the rivalry between Jacob and Esau. It expands this conflict into a prophetic vision of the ongoing struggle between their descendants. The book suggests that the nations, descending from Esau, will continuously oppose the descendants of Jacob, the Israelites, throughout history. This conflict transcends the personal feud between the two brothers and becomes a spiritual battle, symbolizing the eternal struggle between righteousness, represented by Jacob and Israel, and those who stand against it. The struggle between Esau and his descendants, as depicted in the Book of Jubilees, is not merely a territorial dispute. It is part of the greater cosmic war between the forces of good and evil. Esau's line represents nations that will continuously oppose God's chosen people, Israel. This tension between the Israelites and Esau's descendants persists throughout biblical history, playing a significant role in Jubilee's apocalyptic vision. The conflict is linked to the end times, as Jacob and his sons journey into Egypt to reunite with Joseph, while the descendants of Esau continue their spiritual opposition. Esau remained in the land of Edom, and from that moment, the enmity between his descendants and the Israelites continued. As Genesis 33-16 notes, Esau departed on his journey back, marking the beginning of this enduring rivalry. This vision of an ongoing spiritual struggle is central to the broader themes of Jubilees, where the story of the patriarchs is woven into a larger cosmic plan. This plan not only concerns the family of Abraham, but also the destinies of entire nations, illustrating the ultimate battle between good and evil. In Genesis, we witness the birth of Jacob's 12 sons, a pivotal moment in the unfolding of this divine narrative. Leah, Rachel, and their maidservants gave birth to 12 sons: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin. These sons would go on to become the heads of the 12 tribes of Israel. However, the Book of Jubilees adds a deeper layer of divine order too: their births. According to Jubilees, the births were not merely the result of human relationships, but were part of a divinely orchestrated plan. The timing and sequence of each birth were meticulously ordained by God to align with the sacred calendar. The book emphasizes that every son was born according to God's will, affirming the divine providence behind the formation of the tribes of Israel. The 12 sons of Jacob were born according to a divine schedule, making their births an integral part of the larger cosmic plan. Leah, Rachel, and their maidservants gave birth to Jacob's 12 sons, each at the time set by the Lord, and their destinies were recorded on the heavenly tablets, Jubilees 28-12. While the book of Genesis focuses on the narrative surrounding the births of these sons, Genesis 29, 31-30, 34, the book of Jubilees emphasizes that their births were divinely predestined and written in the heavenly tablets. This reinforces the idea that the 12 tribes of Israel were not merely the result of human actions, but were part of a divine, cosmic order. A significant moment in Genesis is the story of Reuben, Jacob's eldest son, who loses his status as the firstborn after committing a grave sin, Genesis 35-22. The Book of Jubilees expands on this event, highlighting its spiritual consequences and explaining why Judah and Levi rise to prominence. In his place, in Jubilees, Reuben's sin is framed not only as a personal failing, but as a violation of the divine laws that had been established long before. His actions are portrayed as an offense against God's ordained plan, and this violation ultimately leads to his loss of the birthright, setting the stage for Judah and Levi to emerge as significant figures in the unfolding divine plan. Reuben's transgression is framed as a spiritual violation that disqualifies him from leading the tribes of Israel. As a result, Judah, the fourth son, emerges as the leader of the tribes, while Levi is chosen to take on the sacred role of the priesthood. This shift is part of the divine order established by God. Because of his sin, Reuben is excluded from the inheritance, and instead, Judah is chosen as the prince over his brothers, with Levi being set apart for the priesthood, forever Jubilees 33-10. Genesis also references Reuben's disqualification, but does not emphasize the spiritual consequences to the same extent. Jubilees places a much stronger emphasis on how Reuben's disqualification fits into the larger cosmic plan. Judah's rise to prominence is presented as part of God's eternal law, while Levi is set apart for the priesthood, linking their destinies to the divine framework that governs Israel's future. While the Bible recognizes the tribe of Levi as the priestly tribe, with Moses and Aaron. Descending from it, Exodus 28, Jubilees frames Levi's role as part of an eternal mandate. The book underscores that Levi's priesthood is not merely a historical event, but an everlasting divine decree. Levi's priesthood was not merely a tribal duty. It was an eternal role established in the heavenly tablets long before the Levitical priesthood was formalized by Moses. According to Jubilees, Levi was chosen by God to serve as the spiritual leader of the tribes responsible for ensuring the observance of divine laws. His priestly role is deeply tied to the cosmic order, connecting heaven and earth. Levi was set apart forever for the priesthood, tasked with offering sacred rites and maintaining the spiritual balance between the two realms. Levi's role as a priest was ordained long before the events of Moses' time and is deeply embedded in the divine plan. Jubilees emphasizes that Levi's priesthood was established in the heavenly tablets from the very beginning, making his spiritual duties an integral part of the cosmic order. His responsibilities offering sacrifices and mediating between the people and the Lord were not just responses to historical circumstances, but were essential to the divine structure that predates the Sinai covenant. While Genesis and Exodus focus on the formalization of the Levitical priesthood during Moses' time, Jubilees highlights that Levi's sacred role was part of God's eternal design. The sons of Jacob are destined to become the leaders of the 12 tribes of Israel, their paths unfolding as they journey toward the promised land. Yet, according to the Book of Jubilees, their inheritance is not solely of land. These tribes are portrayed as sacred guardians of God's law, entrusted with the divine responsibility of upholding the commandments passed down through Abraham and Isaac. Each tribe, in its sacred mission, carries a specific spiritual duty and is expected to abide by the laws inscribed on the heavenly tablets. The Book of Jubilees underscores that the 12 tribes were chosen for more than earthly inheritance. They are the spiritual stewards of God's eternal covenant, tasked with preserving his holy will. The sons of Jacob were not only chosen to inherit the promised land, but also to serve as guardians of God's commandments, ensuring his laws were upheld across all generations. As written in the Book of Jubilees, "These are the laws for your sons and their descendants forever, written on the heavenly tablets, that they may walk in them and live." Jubilees 29-6. While Genesis highlights the tribe's role as leaders, Jubilees emphasizes their duty to uphold the divine law, making them spiritual stewards of God's eternal covenant. In the book of Genesis, the story of Joseph's brothers selling him into slavery due to jealousy over their father's favoritism, Genesis 37, is seen as a family conflict. However, in the Book of Jubilees, this event is given a deeper, more cosmic significance. The betrayal of Joseph is not merely a personal quarrel. It is viewed as a grave violation of the divine order, with consequences that ripple through the generations. Each tribe, according to Jubilees, plays a crucial role in preserving God's divine plan, and the actions of Joseph's brothers disrupt the spiritual destiny of Israel. Their guilt extends beyond family and influences the cosmic balance, highlighting the interconnectedness of each tribe's actions with the broader spiritual fate of Israel. The story of Jacob's life, as presented in Genesis, is marked by his pivotal moment of receiving a blessing from his father, Isaac, which ensures that he would become the father of the 12 tribes of Israel. Genesis 27. This blessing establishes his descendants as the spiritual heirs of God's covenant, a lineage that will carry both the promise of prosperity and numerous challenges. Jubilees, however, deepens this narrative by emphasizing that Jacob's blessing was not merely a promise of descendants, but also a continuation of the divine laws passed down from Abraham and Isaac. This sacred responsibility extends through generations, with each tribe playing a critical role in upholding God's laws and fulfilling the spiritual destiny of Israel. After Jacob receives the blessing, the Book of Jubilees describes how God and the angels reveal to him the divine laws that he and his descendants must follow. These laws include the observance of the Sabbath, purity laws, and the sacred calendar, which would later become formalized in the Mosaic Law. Jacob is depicted as the keeper of these laws, tasked with ensuring that his descendants, the future Israelites, adhere to them as part of their covenant with God. That night, the Lord appeared to him and said, in the Book of Jubilees, God's promise to Jacob is not just a continuation of his birthright, but a divine responsibility that goes beyond earthly inheritance. God appears to Jacob in a vision, saying, I am the Lord God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. The land where you are sleeping, I give to you and your descendants, and your seed shall be as the stars of heaven. Genesis 28, 12-15, Jubilees 27-23. This vision of the latter signifies not only God's covenant with Jacob, but also the responsibility of upholding the divine laws, which are part of the cosmic order governing both heaven and earth. Jacob, in this narrative, is not simply the recipient of a birthright, but the appointed custodian of God's eternal commandments, tasked with ensuring that his descendants follow these laws and uphold the divine will. In the Book of Jubilees, the rivalry between Jacob and Esau is not merely a personal conflict. It is expanded into a prophetic vision of a spiritual battle that will endure through the generations. The book suggests that the nations descending from Esau will perpetually oppose the descendants of Jacob, the Israelites, throughout history. This struggle goes beyond the familial tension and is portrayed as an ongoing spiritual conflict between righteousness, embodied by Jacob and the nation of Israel, and the forces that oppose them. The conflict is deeply intertwined with the divine order, with Jacob's lineage carrying the responsibility of upholding God's laws, which are linked to the heavenly tablets, a symbol of the divine commandments passed down through generations. In the Book of Jubilees, the conflict between Jacob and Esau is more than a territorial dispute. It represents a cosmic struggle between good and evil. Esau's descendants, the Edomites, are seen as enemies of God's chosen people, Israel. This spiritual opposition continues throughout history, playing a significant role in Jubilees' apocalyptic vision, linking the conflict to the end times. The ongoing tension between Israel and Esau's descendants foreshadows a continuous battle between righteousness and evil, culminating in the ultimate conflict at the end of time. In the Book of Jubilees, the enmity between the descendants of Esau and Jacob is portrayed as an ongoing spiritual struggle, continuing through the generations. Esau, who remains in the land of Edom, becomes a symbol of opposition to Jacob and his descendants, with this rivalry persisting throughout history. Jubilees for 53, Genesis 33-16. This conflict is not just a family dispute, but part of a larger cosmic plan that encompasses the destinies of nations. The story of the patriarchs, including Abraham, Jacob, and their descendants, is framed within this grand narrative of the eternal battle between good and evil. In Genesis, we see the birth of Jacob's 12 sons, who will carry the covenant and continue this divine mission, shaping the future of Israel and its eternal struggle against the forces of evil. In the Book of Jubilees, the birth of Jacob's 12 sons Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin becomes more than a result of human relationships. It is portrayed as part of a divine plan orchestrated by God. These sons, born to Jacob's wives Leah and Rachel, as well as their maidservants, 12 tribes of Israel, are shown to be the heads. However, Jubilees goes further, highlighting that the timing and order of their births were not coincidental, but were divinely appointed to correspond with the sacred calendar. The book underscores that each son was part of a larger, predetermined cosmic order, fulfilling God's will for the nation of Israel. In the Book of Jubilees, the births of Jacob's 12 sons Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin are presented as part of a divine, preordained plan. The narrative emphasizes that these births did not occur by chance, but were according to a divine schedule, with each son's arrival set by the Lord. The timing of their births, as well as their destinies, were written on the heavenly tablets, underscoring the concept that the 12 tribes of Israel were always part of a larger cosmic plan, as orchestrated by God. While Genesis recounts the events of their births, Jubilees highlights their connection to the heavenly order, emphasizing that each son's birth was a fulfillment of God's eternal purpose. In the Book of Jubilees, Reuben, Jacob's eldest son, loses his status as the firstborn due to a grave sin, an event also recounted in Genesis 35-22. However, Jubilees goes further, framing Reuben's transgression as a violation of divine laws established since ancient times. His actions are not merely a personal failure, but carry spiritual consequences, disrupting the divine order. This leads to the elevation of Judah and Levi, who rise to prominence as inheritors of leadership roles. The narrative in Jubilees highlights the spiritual dimensions of this event, portraying Reuben's fall as part of God's greater plan, where every action aligns with or defies the divine laws governing the world. In the Book of Jubilees, Reuben's transgression is framed as a spiritual violation, disqualifying him from his rightful position as leader of the tribes. This pivotal moment allows Judah, the fourth son, to rise as the tribal leader and Levi to assume the priestly role, fulfilling the divine order established by God. Reuben's sin excludes him from the inheritance, as reflected in the statement. Judah was chosen as the prince over his brothers, and Levi for the priesthood, forever. Jubilees 33-10. While Genesis briefly mentions Reuben's disqualification, Genesis 49:3-4, Jubilees expands on the spiritual implications, emphasizing that the shift in leadership aligns with God's eternal plan. In the Book of Jubilees, Reuben's disqualification is portrayed as a pivotal moment within God's cosmic plan, aligning with his eternal laws. Judah's ascension to tribal leadership and Levi's designation as the priestly lineage are framed as integral to the divine order, shaping Israel's spiritual future. While the Bible describes Levi's role in the priesthood, with Moses and Aaron descending from this tribe, Exodus 28, Jubilees emphasizes this as part of an eternal mandate. Levi's priestly role is not merely functional, but symbolically connects to a larger spiritual framework governing Israel's destiny and adherence to divine law. In the Book of Jubilees, Levi's priesthood is portrayed as far more than a tribal duty. It is a divine mandate established in the heavenly tablets long before being formalized under Moses. Levi is chosen by God as the spiritual leader of the tribes, entrusted with ensuring the observance of divine laws. His priestly role is described as integral to the cosmic order, symbolically connecting heaven and earth. As part of his eternal calling, Levi is set apart to fulfill sacred responsibilities, reflecting his unique position in the spiritual framework of Israel. And Levi was set apart for the priesthood forever, to offer sacrifices and mediate between God and his people. In the Book of Jubilees, Levi's priesthood is described as an eternal and preordained role established on the heavenly tablets, transcending the historical events of Moses' time. Levi is depicted as the mediator between the people and the Lord, responsible for offering sacrifices and upholding divine laws. Unlike Genesis and Exodus, which detail the establishment of the Levitical priesthood during the time of Moses, Jubilees emphasizes that Levi's sacred calling was part of God's cosmic plan from the very beginning. This portrayal elevates Levi's priesthood as a fundamental element of the divine order that predates even the events at Mount Sinai. The sons of Jacob became the patriarchs of the 12 tribes of Israel, their journeys culminating in the settlement of the Promised Land. However, the Book of Jubilees offers a deeper perspective, portraying these tribes not merely as inheritors of territory, but as the appointed guardians of God's law. Each tribe is entrusted with a unique spiritual responsibility, charged with upholding the divine commandments handed down from Abraham and Isaac. According to Jubilees, these laws, inscribed on the heavenly tablets, signify a cosmic covenant that the tribes must honor. Their selection is framed as part of God's eternal plan, extending beyond land to encompass the preservation of divine order across generations. The 12 sons of Jacob were chosen not only to inherit the land, but also to serve as stewards of God's commandments, tasked with ensuring their observance through all generations. According to Jubilees, the Lord declared to Jacob that these divine laws, inscribed on the heavenly tablets, were to guide his descendants eternally, so they might walk in righteousness and find life. While Genesis highlights Jacob's blessings upon his sons, establishing them as the heads of tribes, Jubilees expands this narrative by emphasizing their divine mandate to uphold and transmit God's laws. This portrayal underscores the tribe's spiritual responsibility as guardians of a sacred covenant. Passed down through generations, each of the 12 tribes holds a profound cosmic responsibility, safeguarding the divine order and shaping Israel's spiritual destiny. In Genesis, Joseph's brothers sell him into slavery, driven by jealousy over their father's favoritism, Genesis 37. However, Jubilees reframes this act not merely as a family dispute, but as a grave violation of the divine order. This betrayal carries consequences far beyond the immediate family, reflecting a disruption in the sacred harmony ordained by God. The guilt of Joseph's brothers becomes a symbolic transgression against the cosmic plan, highlighting the spiritual stakes intertwined with their actions. Beyond the narrative in Genesis, Jubilees intensifies the spiritual gravity of Joseph's betrayal, portraying it as a grave violation of God's heavenly law. While Genesis focuses on the brothers' personal jealousy and guilt, Jubilees emphasizes the cosmic consequences of their actions. Selling Joseph into slavery is depicted as a disruption of the divine plan, an act that draws God's judgment upon them unless they seek repentance. The brothers' sin is no longer confined to familial discord, but becomes a significant transgression against the sacred order established by God. This portrayal underscores the profound moral and spiritual dimensions of their betrayal, elevating it into the realm of divine justice. The sin of the brothers, recorded upon the heavenly tablets, was a grievous transgression against the eternal laws. It was decreed that their descendants would endure suffering until they repented for this great sin. This decree, inscribed in the heavenly realm, interwove their actions into the grand tapestry of divine order, linking their betrayal to the future suffering of Israel under the harsh bondage of Egypt. Their actions, though rooted in a moment of betrayal, set the stage for God's ultimate plan of redemption for his people. Through the Exodus, as foretold in the heavenly tablets, Israel would be delivered from oppression and enter into a covenant with their Creator. This divine foresight, stretching across generations, made clear that Joseph's rise was but a part of the unfolding prophecy for the salvation of Israel. Joseph's rise to power in Egypt is depicted not merely as a result of his wisdom or his skill in interpreting dreams, as seen in Genesis 41, but is deeply connected to a divine plan set forth in the heavenly tablets. According to Jubilees, Joseph's success was not a matter of chance or personal talent alone. It was the fulfillment of God's preordained design, where Joseph was chosen as the Savior for the Israelites. His ascension in Egypt was not incidental. It was a crucial part of the heavenly blueprint, meant to set in motion the events that would ultimately lead to the Exodus. Jubilees emphasizes that Joseph's destiny was to bring his family to Egypt, where they would endure enslavement, only to be delivered through God's miraculous intervention. It was inscribed on the heavenly tablets that Joseph would rule over Egypt, saving his family from famine, while also preparing them for their eventual bondage in Egypt. This divine plan, unfolding through Joseph's life, showcases his rise as a cosmic event with eternal significance, aligning with God's greater purpose for Israel's redemption. Additionally, Jubilees introduces the role of angels in Joseph's journey, portraying their divine guidance and protection as part of God's meticulous orchestration of events. From the moment Joseph was sold into slavery, angels were sent to watch over him, ensuring that his path aligned with the heavenly design for the salvation of Israel. Joseph's journey in Egypt was not just a sequence of fortunate events, but a path meticulously designed by God. As described in Jubilees 34-21, angels were sent to protect Joseph at key moments, ensuring his safety and guiding him to fulfill his divine destiny. The Lord watched over Joseph, considering his life precious, and his plan was inscribed in the heavenly tablets. This divine intervention adds a profound layer of spiritual protection to Joseph's story, illustrating that his rise to power was not only a result of his abilities, but also of God's providence. Unlike the account in Genesis, which ends with Joseph's family settling in Egypt, Jubilees presents his life as prophetic. Joseph's experiences in Egypt were not merely to save his family from famine. They were part of a greater plan that foreshadowed the future enslavement and eventual deliverance of the Israelites. Joseph, aware of his role in God's plan, knew that his descendants would one day face bondage, and he prepared them for their eventual liberation. In his words to his brothers, "I will die, but God will visit you and bring you up out of this land to the land," he swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, "Fear not, for these things have been written." Joseph's death, as depicted in Jubilees 46-9, marks not the end of his story, as it does in Genesis, but rather the beginning of a significant transition in Israel's history. His death, as viewed in Jubilees, is not merely an earthly conclusion, but a prophetic event signaling the commencement of Israel's enslavement in Egypt. However, it also carries within it the promise of future deliverance. This event is part of a cosmic plan of redemption that would ultimately be fulfilled through the Exodus. While Genesis portrays the beginning of Israel's bondage when a new Pharaoh arises who does not know Joseph, Jubilees presents this oppression as part of a divine prophecy written long before the enslavement took place. God had already foretold Israel's bondage in Egypt, and it was always part of his larger plan to lead them toward the Exodus and the giving of the Mosaic Law. Joseph's role in bringing Israel to Egypt as a savior from famine is thus intertwined with the preordained purpose of their eventual enslavement. Their time in Egypt was always destined to end in oppression, but it would also serve as a demonstration of God's power in delivering his people. As written in Jubilees 48-1, It was decreed that Israel would be oppressed in Egypt, and that God would bring them out with great power and wonders to glorify his name. This view of Israel's enslavement transforms it from a mere historical event into part of a grand spiritual narrative, where their suffering and eventual deliverance were always preordained by God. In Jubilees, the suffering of the Israelites is portrayed not merely as a physical trial, but as a necessary spiritual challenge to prepare them for receiving the laws at Mount Sinai. While Exodus recounts God's direct intervention in sending the plagues and delivering Israel from Pharaoh's oppression, Exodus 7-12. Jubilees introduces an additional layer of spiritual warfare, with angels playing a significant role in the battle between divine and demonic forces. In this account, the oppression of Israel becomes part of a cosmic struggle between the forces of good and evil. Time, often associated with Satan, is depicted as working to harden Pharaoh's heart and intensify the suffering of the Israelites. Masta and his evil spirits encourage the Egyptians to oppress Israel even more harshly, testing the Israelites' faith and loyalty to God. The prince of Masta stands in opposition, seeking to destroy Is. The plagues are framed not only as acts of divine judgment, but as part of a larger cosmic battle, with Masta working to prevent the Exodus. Furthermore, Jubilees emphasizes the role of the heavenly tablets, which reveal that the laws and the timing of the Exodus were part of God's eternal plan. Thus, the Exodus was not simply a reaction to Israel's suffering, but a preordained event, woven into the very fabric of divine prophecy. The law, as presented in the Book of Jubilees, claims that the patriarchs were already practicing the Sabbath, making sacrifices, and following many of the laws that would later be given to Moses. Thus, the Mosaic Law is not seen as a new development, but rather a restoration of the eternal laws, passed down since the beginning of time. These commandments were revealed to the patriarchs through divine revelation and the guidance of angels. For example, Abraham is depicted as observing the Sabbath, adhering to dietary laws, circumcising his sons, and following the commandments inscribed on the heavenly tablets. This shows that the law was not a new institution for Israel, but had already been in effect since Adam. The Book of Jubilees presents the law as a timeless code that has always been in place for the righteous, with Moses being the one chosen to deliver it fully to Israel. One of the key contributions of Jubilees to the story of the Mosaic Law is its focus on the cosmic calendar. Time observance, particularly the Sabbath, festivals, and Jubilee years, is central to the divine order. These laws of timekeeping are portrayed as part of the heavenly tablets and are essential for aligning with the divine rhythm of the universe. In Jubilees, the solar calendar, consisting of 364 days, is emphasized as the correct system for observing God's commandments rather than the lunar calendar. The Book of Jubilees emphasizes that all festivals and Sabbaths must be observed on their designated days, warning that straying from this divine calendar can lead to spiritual disorder. Therefore, the laws of timekeeping are integral to the Mosaic Law. God spoke to Moses, instructing him to record the laws of the Sabbath and the festivals for Israel, as these times are decreed on the heavenly tablets and must be observed without deviation to avoid error. Jubilees 52. This focus on the cosmic calendar is not as pronounced in the traditional Bible, where the Sabbath and festivals are mentioned, but without the same emphasis on their cosmic origins. Jubilees, however, highlights the importance of following this calendar, as it aligns human life with the divine plan. While the Mosaic Law in the Bible is specific to the Israelites, Jubilees presents these laws as eternal, binding not just for Israel, but for all generations, including the angels. The book asserts that the laws written on the heavenly tablets are not temporary guidelines for a single nation, but eternal commandments that govern both heaven and earth. The laws given to Moses were meant to be followed by all of God's creation, including angels who are depicted as observing the Sabbath and God's festivals in heaven. This makes the Mosaic Law a part of the universal order, linking the spiritual realm to the physical world. The law given to Moses on Mount Sinai is eternal and will be observed by all. In both heaven and on earth, the angels observe the Sabbath, and the righteous are destined to follow God's commandments forever. Jubilees 52:13. While the concept of the eternal law is not as explicitly stated in the traditional Bible, which centers on the covenant between God and Israel, Jubilees presents the law as an integral part of the universe. It binds both angels and humans to the divine cosmic order. In Jubilees, Israel's future is not left to chance, but is a part of a divinely ordained timeline written on the heavenly tablets from the beginning of time. This timeline outlines the rise and fall of nations, Israel's exile and return, and the eventual judgment upon the world. Every event in human history, from creation to the final judgment, unfolds according to this cosmic schedule recorded in heaven. A unique feature of Jubilees is its insistence that all these events are preordained and that nothing occurs outside of God's divine plan. The book offers a prophetic overview of Israel's journey, explaining that their exile, suffering, and restoration were all recorded in the heavenly records and must unfold according to the divine calendar. All that will happen to Israel, from their rebellion to their redemption, and the appointed times for their deliverance, were fixed long ago. Jubilees 23:32. While Genesis and Exodus focus on specific events in Israel's history, Jubilees offers a broader perspective, showing that Israel's destiny is part of a larger cosmic plan already set in motion. The Book of Jubilees places significant emphasis on the role of angels throughout Israel's history, with their involvement becoming even more pivotal as the end times draw near. In Jubilees, the angels of the Lord are entrusted with executing God's judgment upon the nations, ensuring that His divine will is fulfilled both in heaven and on earth. As the end of days approaches, the text describes how angels will descend to separate the righteous from the wicked, gathering those who have remained faithful to God's commandments. Furthermore, Jubilees introduces the concept of Tima, the leader of the evil spirits, who will be bound and cast into the abyss, symbolizing the ultimate defeat of the forces of darkness. The Lord will send his angels to gather his chosen ones, and they shall bind the prince of evil spirits, casting him into the abyss until the time of judgment, when he shall be destroyed forever. Jubilees 23:29. This depiction of angels as instruments of divine justice adds a distinctive dimension to end times prophecy. While the traditional Bible touches on the role of angels in judgment such as in Revelation, Jubilees offers a more detailed vision of their involvement in the spiritual warfare that will unfold in the final days. One of the central themes in Jubilees is the prophetic vision of Israel's redemption. Despite Israel's rebellion and exile, God has already determined a time when they will be restored to their land and renewed in their covenant with him. This restoration is not merely a political event. It is a spiritual renewal in alignment with the cosmic plan written in heaven. According to Jubilees, the redemption of Israel will come after a period of great tribulation, during which the nation will undergo purification. The law will be reestablished, and the people will walk once again in holiness, preparing themselves for the arrival of the Messiah and the establishment of God's kingdom on earth. It is written that the children of Israel will turn back to the Lord with all their hearts, and he will gather them from the nations and restore them to their land, as recorded on the heavenly tablets. Jubilees 23:26. While the traditional Bible also speaks of Israel's restoration as found in Isaiah and Jeremiah, Jubilees adds the detail that this restoration follows a predetermined timeline, with specific events already recorded in the heavenly records. In the end times, Jubilees describes the coming of a messianic kingdom, where God's chosen ruler, often interpreted as the Messiah, will establish righteousness on earth. This kingdom will mark the end of the current age and the beginning of God's eternal reign, where the law will be upheld and the righteous will inherit the earth. The final judgment in Jubilees involves the separation of the righteous from the wicked, with the wicked cast into the lake of fire, where they will be destroyed forever. Masta and his evil spirits will be defeated, and the Messiah will reign in peace and justice. This apocalyptic vision mirrors the imagery found in the Book of Revelation, but Jubilees adds further detail to the unfolding of these events. In Jubilees, the emphasis is placed on the restoration of the law and the cosmic order. The Lord will establish his kingdom on earth, and the righteous will reign with him, for his law will be written on their hearts. The wicked, on the other hand, will be cast into the lake of fire, symbolizing their ultimate defeat. Jubilees 52:13. This messianic kingdom, as depicted in Jubilees, reflects a vision of a restored creation where the law is fully observed and the faithful are rewarded for their devotion. The final judgment will bring the ultimate defeat of evil, marking the beginning of an era of eternity. If you found value in this deep exploration of the Book of Jubilees and its unique cosmic perspective on biblical history, be sure to share this video with others who may be interested in uncovering these profound mysteries. By sharing, you help us continue exploring ancient texts and revealing the hidden layers of God's eternal plan. Don't forget to like, subscribe to Deep Bible Stories, and engage in the comments. Together, we can delve even deeper into these captivating biblical insights.